Clemson off that huge win against NC State. Now we'll head up to Boston College, and BC is going to be hyped for this to face Clemson. It's also a red bandana game honoring Wells Crowther. Amazing story, hero from 9/11. If you haven't heard it already, look it up. Clemson's obviously off that huge win against NC State. They have Florida State on deck. They're also coming off that Wake game. They got Florida State on deck, Syracuse to Notre Dame. Like, this is a very sleepy spot. BC was lifeless until last week, and then they upset Louisville. I mean, they couldn't. If you watch that Bob Tech game, I mean, I don't think that 100 total yards. The one thing you would worry, what worries me on the surface, this is a great spot. I want that 21. I'll probably be on BC in some form or fashion, but I want the 21. Preferably, obviously, you would worry right away about the offensive line. Like, the Boston College offensive line had to replace everyone from last year, and they couldn't do a thing through the first up until that Louisville game. And BC currently is 131st in line yards, 126th in sack rate. But with a brand new unit, they had another guy in there last week. They finally had some time because they have such talented players on the outside. Zay Flowers, one of the most explosive players, should be a first-round draft pick. He's amazing. You have a quarterback with an NFL arm. They finally got some time to do some things last week. And that was against why I was even more impressed with that. And they tried to give a game that game away too. But why I was so impressed with that effort was what's one thing that Louisville does very well? They rank in the top 10 in sack rate and passing down sack rate. And you would think BC, their whole offense would get blown up by that. Nope, they handled themselves. So trending up in that direction. How about Clemson, right? Oh, the best offensive line in the history of college football, which many people thought. You know what their passing down sack rate is? 100th. The regular sack rate, 76th. You know what their line yards are? 52nd. This has been an average defensive line that will also be without Brian Brisset again, maybe Xavier Thomas. So I think BC's offense can get some things done here. And I think they'll cover this number in an awful spot for Clemson. I'm riding with the Eagles again and my boy Phil Jerkovich. Do you agree?
It's tight. The number is completely inflated. I projected 15.5. We're up to 20.5.
I can't hear you, by the way.
Really? I haven't changed anything.
Okay. I got you now.
Got me now? All right. Yeah, the number is completely inflated. I mean, it's just way too high right now. I projected at 15.5. So there's certainly some value on Boston College, but there's just a lot of love in the market for Clemson after what they did to NC State last week, putting it together on the offensive side of the ball. Like, hello, Clemson offense. Welcome back to the world of reality of actually mattering in the college football national title landscape. But, there are things about BC that bother me, like tight end George Takux. He didn't practice on Wednesday. He's hopeful to play this game in Clemson, but if he doesn't go, then defensive line Quintavious Hutchins might be the tight end starter. And you say, well, what are you so worried about a tight end for? Well, Takux is second in targets for Phil Jerkovich. So it's actually a pretty big loss if he is not there. And Clemson 2 deep lists Andrew Makuba as a starting strong safety, Brian Barisi in at the defensive tackle, Tyler Davis on the defensive line. And there's no signs of Xavier Thomas in the 2 deep. But we were here last week. I mentioned these exact same names, and Makubu he wasn't even there. So, I don't know what we're going to get out of this Clemson defense. Maybe they play the second string in all of these key positions where they've been fighting injury. Keep those guys fresh for Florida State.
Brees was ruled out, by the way, like officially out.
Yeah. So here we are recording this podcast on a Thursday. I'm staring at a 2 deep that the Dabo puts out, and it's not even close to the reality of what this defense is going to have on the field. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're missing a couple other names that I just mentioned. So, Boston College, if you go to the other side, with Clemson's offense, Boston College is 112th in defensive pass coverage. They're not generating any havoc whatsoever. And Clemson is now a top 10 team in standard downs explosiveness. That is DJ running. That is DJ throwing. Clemson should absolutely shut down this BC attack. That's, dead last in line yards. They can't run the ball whatsoever. They're 122nd havoc allowed. That's, the Clemson defensive players got to be licking their chops on that. And they just can't keep defenses out of the backfield. But again, who are we going to see on this defensive side for Clemson? So it's tough for me to buy in this inflated spread on Clemson, but I do like the over in this game. I'm probably going to hit it here while we're recording the podcast. I think DJ continues to roll with this offense. The BC defense can't throw up any resistance. And I don't think Clemson is fully healthy. And I don't think we'll see their full list of starters as to what we'll see against Florida State next week.
Yeah, I also think the BC offensive line numbers are going to continue to improve like we saw last week. Brand new unit. You would expect, like literally 5 new guys. You would expect improvement as the year goes on. I think we saw that last week against a team that's top 10 in sack rate. And, they put up 35 even with some crazy turnovers. And the talent is there on the outside. So, yeah, I think BC will score. And I think, Furman moved the ball on Clemson. This is not your elite Clemson defense that many expected. And especially
don't say anything bad about the offense. Oh, this is a DJU podcast, or at least on my side, on this side of the microphone.
It's a D podcast.